Ladies and gentlemen, step back in time as we uncover the story of the British 3 pence, a small coin that carried the weight of an empire. From the reign of King George VI through to the early years of Queen Elizabeth II, this humble coin witnessed war, recovery, and a nation's transformation. Each date, from 1937 to 1967, tells its own tale of design, purpose, and royal legacy. Join us as we explore how this tiny brass treasure became one of the most distinctive coins in British history. We now move to one of the most distinctive and desirable treasures from the early reign of King George VI, a coin that still turns collectors' heads and captures the spirit of pre-war Britain. A year that marked not just the beginning of a new reign, but also the birth of one of Britain's most fascinating and valuable coins, the 1937 George VI 3 pence. This coin, small yet mighty, holds within it a story of royal heritage, wartime change, and enduring value that continues to captivate collectors across the world. When George VI ascended to the throne in 1936, following the abdication of his brother Edward VIII, the royal mint faced an urgent need to redesign Britain's entire coinage. The 1937 3 pence became one of the very first coins to bear the new king's portrait, a moment of transition that turned ordinary metal into a symbol of stability and strength in uncertain times. The 1937 3 pence was unlike any coin that had come before. Crafted in nickel brass, its bright golden tone stood out among the silver coins of the era. The obverse featured a finely detailed effigy of King George VI facing left, designed by the talented artist Thomas Humphrey Paget, while the reverse proudly displayed a Tudor thrift plant, a national symbol of thrift, resilience, and renewal. This choice of design was deliberate. Britain was recovering from the economic struggles of the 1930s, and the thrift plan embodied the spirit of saving, endurance, and national pride. For many, the coin wasn't just money, it was a quiet message of hope in every pocket. As these coins entered circulation, their distinctive shape and composition caught the attention of the public. The brass 3 pence was thicker, heavier, and more striking than earlier silver issues. Its 12-sided design made it easily recognizable by touch, a clever innovation that would later become iconic in British coinage history. But what truly makes the 1937 3 pence valuable today isn't just its age or beauty, it's its story. This was the first issue of its kind under George VI, minted at the dawn of his reign, marking the beginning of a new era in British history. Collectors treasure it as a milestone, a coin that represents the resilience of a nation under a new king. Another factor adding to its desirability is its rarity in pristine condition. While millions were minted for circulation, very few have survived with their original luster intact. Those that remain in near mint or uncirculated grades command astonishing prices in auctions and private sales. Even more remarkable are the special proof versions, struck in limited numbers for collectors and presentation sets in 1937. These proof coins, with their mirror-like surfaces and sharp details, are among the most sought-after pieces in the entire George VI series. The value of a genuine 1937 3 pence can vary widely depending on condition, but high-grade examples have been known to sell for over $900 in the numismatic market. For a coin originally worth just 3 pence, that's a spectacular transformation in value. This dramatic rise in price shows how small artifacts of history can become treasures of time. Each coin is a surviving link to the world of 1937, a world preparing for war, yet holding onto the promise of peace and prosperity through royal continuity. Collectors and historians alike see the 1937 3 pence as a turning point, the beginning of modern British coinage design, and the symbol of a monarch who would guide his nation through World War II. Every line on George VI's portrait, every curve of the thrift plant, reminds us that coins are more than just currency. They are fragments of history, forged in metal and memory. The appeal of this coin isn't limited to British collectors. Across the world, numismatists recognize it as a key piece of 20th century coinage, one that reflects craftsmanship, history, and the enduring strength of a nation and its monarch. Its geometric edges and bright brass color remain instantly recognizable, even to those who have never held one before. It is a coin that glows, both literally and figuratively, symbolizing the light that Britain held onto during the dark years that followed. To own a 1937 Three Pence is to hold a piece of royal legacy. Each coin is a silent storyteller of an empire in transition, a king finding his footing, and a nation preparing for the challenges of a turbulent century. Today, it stands as one of the most valuable and collectible British coins from the early reign of George VI. Its legacy continues to grow as collectors compete to find the finest examples still in existence. So if you happen to come across this extraordinary coin, whether in an old family collection or a forgotten box of change, don't underestimate it. That tiny golden 12-sided piece could be worth up to $900 or more depending on its quality and preservation. The 1937 George VI Three Pence is not merely a coin, it's a treasure, a shining emblem of history, courage, and craftsmanship that reminds us how even the smallest things can carry the greatest value. As the years moved forward and Britain found itself gripped by the chaos of World War II, the Three Pence coin continued its journey, evolving not just as a means of currency, but as a quiet witness to courage, endurance, and survival. From the hopeful glow of 1937, we now enter 1941, a year when every coin carried the weight of a nation at war. The year 1941 was one of the darkest in Britain's history. Bombs rained over cities, soldiers fought on distant fronts, and the world stood on the edge of uncertainty. Yet, even amid this turmoil, the humble George VI Three Pence coin remained a symbol of everyday life, resilience, and quiet pride. While its design remained familiar, the strong profile of King George VI on the front and the thrift plan on the back, its meaning deepened in those war-torn years. The thrift, once a symbol of saving, now embodied sacrifice. It reminded every citizen of the small acts that kept the nation alive, from rationing food to saving fuel. Every penny mattered. The 1941 issue of the Three Pence was struck in the same distinctive nickel-brass alloy introduced in 1937. This composition proved practical during wartime, as copper and nickel were essential for weapons and machinery, making every coin's metal both precious and symbolic of resourcefulness. Though it was mass-produced, the 1941 Three Pence carries immense value today for its historical weight. It wasn't just currency, it was a part of Britain's fight for survival. Soldiers carried it in their pockets, families used it to buy rationed bread, and children saved it in tiny tins, all unaware they were handling a piece of enduring history. Every scratch and worn edge on a 1941 coin tells a story. These marks are reminders of a time when every citizen contributed to the war effort, and every coin passed through hands that were doing their part for victory. That is what gives this coin its soul. Its scars are proof of its journey through Britain's most testing years. Collectors across the world now seek these coins not only for their beauty, but for their emotional power. To hold a 1941 Three Pence is to feel the heartbeat of wartime Britain, steady, defiant, and unbroken. Because of its association with the war years, the 1941 issue has grown increasingly rare in pristine condition. Many coins were lost, damaged, or heavily worn through use, leaving only a few surviving in near mint or uncirculated form. Those few, preserved through generations, have become coveted treasures in numismatic circles. Collectors are willing to pay impressive amounts for them. High-grade examples can fetch up to $650 or more, especially when the coin retains its sharp edges and golden tone. Proof and specimen strikes from this period, though extremely scarce, are even more desirable. Their crisp details and mirror-like surfaces make them the crown jewels of any George VI coin collection. But beyond monetary worth, the 1941 Three Pence holds an emotional value that can't be measured in dollars. It connects us directly to the ordinary people who endured extraordinary times, a reminder that even the smallest coin carried courage within it. It also stands as a testament to the craftsmanship of the Royal Mint during wartime. Despite resource shortages and production pressures, the coins retain their high quality and precision, proof of Britain's determination to maintain its identity, even in adversity. The distinctive 12-sided shape helped blind citizens recognize it by touch, a small but important detail that made this coin beloved among the people. It was practical, symbolic, and uniquely British. Today, the 1941 Three Pence shines not just as a relic of the past, but as an emblem of strength and endurance. Its presence in any collection brings with it the spirit of wartime Britain, disciplined, proud, and unyielding. Collectors treasure it as part of a broader legacy, one that begins with the optimism of 1937 and carries through the fire of the 1940s. Each coin from this period adds another chapter to that powerful story. The continued rise in its auction prices reflects that emotional pull. The world doesn't just see this as a coin, it sees it as a surviving piece of history that can be held in one's hand. So if you ever come across a 1941 George VI Three Pence, know that you're not just holding metal, you're holding courage. You're holding the spirit of a nation that refused to fall. This coin, small as it may be, remains one of the most valuable relics from Britain's wartime years, and its worth, both sentimental and monetary, continues to grow with every passing year. The 1941 George VI Three Pence is more than a collectible. It is a golden memory of endurance, pride, and perseverance, a treasure born in the heart of war, yet glowing forever in the light of history. As Britain pushed through the hardest years of World War II, the nation's resolve only grew stronger. From the defiant spirit of 1941, we move now to 1943, a year when hope flickered again, and the George VI Three Pence stood as a quiet symbol of that strength and perseverance. The year 1943 marked a turning point in the Second World War. The tide was beginning to turn in favor of the Allies, and the people of Britain, though weary, held tightly to faith and endurance. Amid this backdrop, the George VI Three Pence continued to circulate, a familiar comfort in a world that was anything but ordinary. While its design remained unchanged from earlier years, its symbolism grew even deeper. The portrait of George VI reminded the public of calm, steadfast leadership, while the thrift plan on the reverse continued to represent the virtues of saving, simplicity, and national unity. Every coin that exchanged hands was a small reminder of collective resilience. By 1943, metal shortages had reached their peak. The Royal Mint's use of nickel brass for the 3 pence proved to be a brilliant decision, as it conserved essential metals for the war effort while keeping coin production strong. This practical composition, coupled with the coin's distinctive dodecagonal shape, made it one of the most recognizable and durable denominations of its time. The 1943 issue holds historical value not just for its design, but for the era it represents, a year of courage and cautious optimism. Britain was bombed, battered, and burdened, yet life went on. Markets reopened, children played, and the familiar clink of coins echoed once again through the streets. Every 1943 Three Pence was part of that rhythm. It passed through the hands of workers in factories, soldiers returning home on brief leave, and families trying to rebuild what war had taken. In many ways, this coin wasn't just money, it was morale. Collectors today regard the 1943 issue as one of the most evocative wartime coins. Though it wasn't produced in limited numbers, finding one in pristine condition is no small feat. The demands of daily use during wartime meant most coins were worn and dulled long before peace returned. Those few surviving in excellent condition, with their golden luster still glowing, are now considered historical treasures. High-grade examples of the 1943 George 6 Three Pence can reach values up to $750, depending on condition, tone, and sharpness of detail. The proof and specially struck presentation pieces from this year are especially rare. These were not for public circulation, but for official sets and select collectors. When they appear at auction, they ignite bidding wars among serious numismatists. Beyond their financial worth, these coins are priceless for their connection to wartime Britain. Each one serves as a reminder of how even in the bleakest moments, ordinary life, buying bread, saving change, sharing small joys persisted. The 1943 Three Pence carries a quiet heroism. It's not glamorous or ornate, but its simplicity is its power. It represents dignity in hardship, a trait that defined George VI and his people throughout the war. Many of these coins, found decades later in forgotten drawers or old family tins, still gleam faintly, as if carrying the light of the era they survived. To hold one is to hold the spirit of Britain itself, resilient, steady, and unyielding. The fact that a small, 12-sided brass coin from 1943 could command hundreds of dollars today is a testament not only to its rarity, but to the story it tells. Each one bridges the distance between past and present, connecting collectors to an age of courage. The craftsmanship, the symbolism, and the timing of its creation all combine to make this coin one of the most desirable wartime issues of the George VI era. Its allure lies not just in what it's worth, but in what it represents. This coin survived bombings, blackouts, and rationing. It witnessed loss and hope, despair and recovery, and through it all, it remained a small, shining emblem of national identity. Collectors who own the 1943 Three Pence aren't just preserving a coin, they're preserving a story of how a nation stood tall, united under one crown, with courage minted into every coin. Its golden color continues to capture the imagination of enthusiasts across the world. Even after more than 8 decades, its charm has not faded. If anything, it has only grown. So when you look at a 1943 George VI Three Pence, remember, this isn't just a coin. It's a survivor, a symbol of endurance and quiet strength, a tangible link to one of the most defining moments in British history. And that is why today, this remarkable piece can fetch up to $750, making it one of the most valuable and emotionally powerful coins from the wartime era of George VI. The 1943 George VI Three Pence reminds us that even in the darkest years, hope was never lost. It was carried, one coin at a time, in the hands of the British people. As the echoes of war slowly faded and Britain stepped into a new decade of rebuilding, the George VI Three Pence continued to evolve, from a wartime symbol of endurance into a post-war emblem of resilience and recovery. Now, we arrive at the year 1952, the final chapter in King George VI's reign, and one of the most poignant years in British numismatic history. The year 1952 stands as both an end and a beginning. It marked the closing chapter of the George VI era, a monarch who had guided his nation through war, reconstruction, and renewal, and the dawn of a new age soon to be defined by Queen Elizabeth II. The 1952 George VI Three Pence, therefore, isn't merely a coin. It's a historical bridge between two reigns. Minted during the king's final year of life, the 1952 Three Pence carries a quiet gravity that few other coins can match. It was struck at a time when Britain was emerging from austerity and facing the challenges of modernization. Every detail of the coin reflects a nation that had endured, survived, and now sought to rebuild. The familiar design remained the strong, serene portrait of George VI by Thomas Humphrey Paget and the thrift plan on the reverse. But now, That thrift plant stood for something new. No longer a wartime symbol of saving and sacrifice, it had become a sign of rebirth, a golden emblem of hope for a brighter tomorrow. Production numbers for the 1952 Three Pence were relatively low compared to earlier years, as the country began preparing for a new coinage under the next monarch. This scarcity is one of the key reasons why the 1952 issue is so valuable today. Each surviving specimen represents one of the last coins ever minted during George VI's reign. When collectors hold this piece, they hold the closing moment of an era, the very end of a royal legacy that defined courage and duty. The historical significance of this coin is immense. In early 1952, King George VI passed away unexpectedly, and his daughter Elizabeth ascended the throne. As such, the 1952 Three Pence became the final coin to bear his image, making it not just a collectible, but a royal farewell. For coin historians, the 1952 issue is a numismatic milestone. It marks the transition from the wartime monarchy of George VI to the modern Commonwealth under Elizabeth II, from survival to rejuvenation. Its value reflects this importance. Well-preserved examples of the 1952 George VI Three Pence can command prices of up to $1,200, especially when in uncirculated or proof-like condition. The limited mintage, combined with the emotional weight of its timing, has made it one of the most sought-after pieces in the entire George VI series. Collectors cherish it not only for its rarity but for what it represents, the dignity of a king who never expected to rule, yet led with honor through Britain's darkest decade. This coin, minted in the year of his passing, serves as a timeless tribute to his resilience and quiet strength. Even its brass composition adds to its symbolism. Strong, enduring, and untarnished by time, it reflects the very character of the man whose portrait it bears. There's something poetic about that, a coin that doesn't fade easily, just as the memory of George VI never has. The 1952 Three Pence also represents the end of an artistic chapter in British coin design. The style, the lettering, the royal portrait, all evoke an age of traditional craftsmanship that would soon evolve into the modern aesthetics of the Elizabethan era. Collectors often describe this coin as the last breath of an age. It's the moment before change, frozen in gold-toned metal, the bridge between legacy and progress. Many of these coins were carefully preserved by those who recognized their historical value even at the time. To this day, finding a flawless specimen remains a dream for serious numismatists worldwide. Its market value continues to rise, driven by its scarcity and significance. When it appears at major auctions, bidders from across continents compete fiercely to secure it, knowing they're not just buying a coin, they're owning a moment in royal history. For new collectors, the 1952 George VI Three Pence offers an inspiring lesson that history's greatest treasures are often the smallest ones, carrying stories far bigger than their size. The emotional connection this coin creates is undeniable. It's not just about metal, mint marks, or catalog numbers. It's about heritage, leadership, and the enduring mark of a monarch who guided his people through unimaginable trials. So if you ever come across the 1952 George VI Three Pence, consider yourself lucky, for you found not just a coin, but a farewell to an era. A relic of the king who united a nation with quiet strength, and whose final coin now stands as one of Britain's most valuable and symbolic pieces of numismatic history, worth up to $1,200 in top condition. The 1952 Three Pence is, without question, a golden chapter in Britain's royal coinage, a small, gleaming reminder that even the end of an era can shine brighter than its beginning. With the passing of King George VI, Britain entered a new age, a chapter of renewal under a young and hopeful monarch. The crown now rested on the head of Queen Elizabeth II, and with her came a fresh era for British coinage. From the solemn farewell of 1952, We now step into 1960, a year when the 3 pence coin evolved once again, reflecting a nation ready to modernize, rebuild, and redefine its identity. The year 1960 was a turning point not only for the monarchy but for the nation itself. Britain was changing, rebuilding after war, redefining its empire, and stepping confidently into a new decade of progress. In the midst of all this stood the familiar yet renewed symbol of continuity, the Elizabeth II 3 pence. This coin carried forward the legacy of its predecessors, yet it spoke with a new voice, one of optimism and youth. The obverse bore the graceful, right-facing portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Mary Gillick, which radiated freshness and modernity. It was a departure from the more formal depictions of monarchs past, symbolizing a nation looking forward rather than back. The reverse retained the distinctive 12-sided brass design, but now gleamed brighter than ever. The Tudor portcullis design, first introduced under her reign, became a striking emblem of tradition balanced with progress. It represented the stability of Parliament and the strength of the realm, perfectly fitting for a modernizing Britain. By 1960, the 3 pence coin had become deeply woven into everyday life. Its unique shape made it instantly recognizable, and its durability ensured it remained in circulation for decades. But beyond its practicality, the 1960 issue carried emotional and symbolic weight. It was one of the early coins of Elizabeth II's reign, marking a fresh start for the British people. Collectors cherish the 1963 pence for this very reason. It represents the optimism of a new Elizabethan era, a time when Britain was rebuilding its confidence and redefining its global role. Every coin minted that year carried a sense of renewal and national pride. Though millions were produced, high-quality examples remain highly collectible today. Many coins suffered from circulation wear, and finding one in uncirculated or proof condition is a rare delight for numismatists. Those flawless specimens, preserved in their golden brilliance, can command impressive prices, up to $850 in the numismatic market, depending on their condition and sharpness of strike. Even more valuable are the specially struck proof versions created for collectors and presentation sets. Their crisp detailing, mirror-like finish, and historical context make them stand out as some of the most desirable coins of the early Elizabeth II period. But beyond the numbers, the 1963 pence tells a powerful story of continuity, how a small coin managed to bridge two royal eras while keeping Britain's identity intact. It reflects a monarchy that evolved with grace and a people who embraced change with hope. Each time this coin exchanged hands, it was more than a transaction. It was a subtle reminder of national unity. It moved through the bustling streets of London, the growing suburbs, and the countryside markets, carrying the image of a young queen who symbolized stability in a fast-changing world. The design, both elegant and enduring, reflected the craftsmanship of the royal mint at its best. The sharp edges, the golden tone, and the bold engraving together gave the coin a distinctive beauty unmatched by many of its contemporaries. Even today, its tactile design, 12 sides of polished brass, captures attention and admiration. For collectors, it is not just a coin, but a masterpiece of mid-century British minting. The 1963 pence also marked the steady path toward a new monetary system. Decimalisation was on the horizon, and coins like this stood at the threshold of that transformation. In many ways, it was both the last of the old and the herald of the new. Its ongoing demand among collectors reflects its symbolic importance, a coin that represents not only value but history. When a 1963 pence appears at auction, the bidding often exceeds expectations, fueled by nostalgia and national pride. For those who collect British coins, the 1960 issue stands as an essential piece, one that connects the legacy of George VI with the bright beginnings of Elizabeth II. It's a coin that tells a story of transition, resilience, and renewal. Every golden gleam of its surface reflects the optimism of a nation emerging from the shadows of post-war years. It captures a time when Britain looked toward the future and saw possibility. To own a 1960 Elizabeth II Three Pence is to hold a piece of that optimism, a fragment of history that still shines with meaning. Its value, both sentimental and monetary, continues to rise, with pristine examples worth up to $850, proving that history, when preserved in gold-toned metal, never loses its brilliance. The 1963 pence stands as one of the most cherished and valuable coins from the early years of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, a coin that doesn't just tell history, but glows with it. After exploring the fascinating journey of previous rare British coins, we now move to one that carries both royal prestige and historical weight, a coin born in the early reign of a new monarch. The year 1967 was a defining moment in British coinage. It marked the twilight of the predecimal era, just before the Great Transformation to decimal currency in 1971. The 1967 Three Pence was the last of its kind to be widely circulated, a coin that bridged the gap between old and new Britain. By this time, the traditional silver Three Pence had long vanished. In its place stood a new, distinctive design, a brass coin with a dodecagonal or 12-sided shape. It was larger, heavier, and golden in color, representing both modernity and strength. On the obverse side was the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, designed by Mary Gillick. Her uncrowned head facing right reflected youthful dignity and optimism, the image of a monarch whose reign had begun in a time of post-war rebuilding and global transformation. The reverse displayed the striking image of a Tudor portcullis, a classic symbol of British authority and tradition, crowned above, with the inscription Three Pence and the date below. This design by artist Francis Madge Kitchener perfectly captured the blend of heritage and modern design that defined 1960s Britain. Though produced in large numbers, the 1967 issue stands apart because it was the very last regular circulation Three Pence ever struck in Britain before decimalisation. That finality gives it historic weight and collector appeal. For many, this coin represents the end of an era, the farewell to a centuries-old denomination that had existed since the 1500s. Holding a 1967 Three Pence is like holding the closing chapter of traditional British coinage. Its unique 12-sided shape made it instantly recognizable, even in a handful of change. And its bright brass shine stood out against the silvers and coppers of the time, giving it a sense of prestige that few small coins ever achieved. While millions were minted for circulation, special proof and high-quality examples were also produced, and these are where the true value lies today. Collectors worldwide hunt for flawless, uncirculated 1967 Three Pence coins that retain their original golden luster. The value of this coin depends greatly on its condition, with top-grade specimens commanding impressive prices at auctions and numismatic markets. In perfect mint condition, the 1967 Elizabeth II Three Pence can fetch up to $500, while proof examples or coins from rare sets can exceed that figure. But the worth of this coin goes beyond monetary value. It is a nostalgic emblem of Britain's cultural and economic transition, from the empire years to a modern commonwealth, from pounds, shillings, and pence to the decimal system we know today. For collectors, the 1967 Three Pence is not merely a piece of metal. It's a moment frozen in time, representing a monarch who continues to reign and a nation on the edge of change. It's remarkable how such a small coin carries so much emotion and memory. For millions who grew up in that period, it evokes the sound of coins clinking in pockets, the feel of brass warmth in hand, and the pride of British identity. Every detail, from the crisp portrait of the Queen to the crown-topped portcullis, reflects a deep connection between monarchy and people, a unity that has endured across decades. And as years pass, the 1967 Elizabeth II Three Pence becomes rarer in pristine form. Each surviving coin adds historical and sentimental value, transforming an everyday item into a collectible gem. Today, this coin stands as a symbol of both the past and the future, the bridge between Old Britain and New, a tribute to the stability and grace of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. So when you see this golden 12-sided coin, remember it's more than a piece of currency. It's a royal relic of change, progress, and pride, carrying within it the echoes of a nation's history and the brilliance of a queen's legacy.